Miami Beach has just declared war on its own tourists. Imagine this. In a state that welcomed over 41 million visitors in just the first 3 months of 2025, one of its most famous cities is telling young people to go home. Curfews, $100, parking fees for non-residents, early beach closures, bag checks at the sand, license plate readers at every entry point. Does this sound like a holiday paradise or a fortress under siege? For decades, Spring Break has been Florida's golden goose, pumping billions into hotels, bars, restaurants, and nightclubs. Yet today, city leaders are rewriting the rules of the game. Arrests dropped by 14% this season, felony charges down 26%, but bars like Sweet Liberty reported revenue crashing by 30%. Residents cheer at the quiet nights, while businesses cry foul at empty dance floors. So here's the burning question. Is Miami Beach cleaning up its act or killing its soul? And what happens when a tourism economy turns its back on the very crowds that made it famous? If you were the mayor, would you choose public safety or economic survival? And if you were planning a trip, would Miami still be on your bucket list? Spring Break was once Miami Beach's crown jewel, a ritual that transformed the city into a global party capital. Every March, hundreds of thousands of students from across the United States and from as far as Europe and Latin America descended on South Beach. Hotels sold out, flights surged, and bars pulsed until sunrise. For the local economy, this was more than just a party. It was a reliable cash machine that filled city coffers and kept hospitality workers employed through the slow spring shoulder season. But by 2025, the story looks very different. What was once marketed as a playground has become a battlefield between city officials, exhausted residents, desperate business owners, and the flood of young tourists who still dream of Miami's neon nights. The city has imposed sweeping restrictions. DUI checkpoints line the causeways, police patrols swarm Ocean Drive, beaches close early, and non-residents face $100 flat parking fees. Miami Beach calls it the Spring Breakup Initiative, a bold attempt to change the city's image and cut off the chaos at its source. Supporters argue the numbers don't lie. Between the 25th of February and the 22nd of March of this year, there were 374 arrests tied to Spring Break, down roughly 14% from 2024. Felony arrests have dropped 26% since 2023. For local homeowners who remember sleepless nights, gunshots, and gridlock, this feels like long overdue relief. We finally have our city back, some residents say, yet the other side of the coin is harder to ignore. Sweet Liberty, a beloved bar in South Beach, reported revenues down 30% compared to 2 years ago. Clubs that once thrived on college crowds now face empty dance floors. And while hotels remain relatively strong thanks to older, wealthier visitors who don't mind stricter rules, the broader nightlife economy is taking a hit. So the central question emerges. What is Miami Beach without Spring Break? Is it still the carefree capital of youth culture? Or is it transforming into a sanitized resort town for retirees and high-spending internationals? More importantly, who gets to decide the future of this city? The residents who demand peace, the businesses that rely on chaos, or the policymakers trying to balance both? If you were a student dreaming of Florida beaches, would these restrictions push you to Fort Lauderdale or Panama City instead? And if you were a Miami homeowner, would you celebrate the quiet or mourn the loss of a city's beating heart? The numbers tell a story. But in Miami Beach, the voices on the street complete the picture. To understand the depth of this transformation, let's look at the hard data and then hear what residents, tourists, and business owners are actually saying. First, the data. Between the 25th of February and the 22nd of March 2025, there were 374 arrests linked to Spring Break activities. That's roughly a 14% decrease compared to 2024, when over 430 people were arrested in the same period. Felony arrests, the serious crimes, have dropped by 26% since 2023. On paper, the crackdown is working. In fact, Miami Beach officials proudly declared the season the safest spring break in recent history. But the streets feel different. Hotels report steady bookings thanks to wealthier tourists seeking sun rather than nightlife. According to the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, international arrivals in 2024 rose by 4% and domestic travelers by 2%. Florida overall welcomed 143 million tourists in 2024, a record-breaking number. Miami, Dade's slice of that pie was more than 28 million. Clearly, tourism in the macro sense is thriving. Yet if you step into a bar off Collins Avenue, the mood shifts. A bartender at Sweet Liberty, speaking on condition of anonymity, summed it up bluntly. "We used to pack 500 students in here every night during March. This year, maybe 200. We're down 30% in sales compared to 2 years ago. The city says it's safer, but safe doesn't pay the bills." Now let's hear from the residents. Maria Gonzalez, who has lived near Ocean Drive for 25 years, sees things differently. "For the first time in a decade, I can sleep through the night in March, No gunshots, no drunk kids screaming outside my window. People forget we live here. It's not just a playground. I feel like Miami Beach finally belongs to its residents again. This divide is visible block by block. Business owners are counting losses, while homeowners are celebrating peace. Which side should policymakers prioritize? Let's not forget the tourists themselves. Jason, a 21-year-old college student from Ohio, gave us his candid take. We came here for spring break because it's Miami. You expect the parties, the freedom? Instead, cops searched our bags at the beach, and the clubs were shutting down early. Honestly, next year we'll probably try Fort Lauderdale. It's less strict. Contrast that with the words of Margaret, a 8-year-old visitor from Toronto. I love it. Miami feels safe again. I can walk down Ocean Drive without worrying about fights breaking out. For me, this is perfect. I'm not here for keg stands, I'm here for the ocean. The city, in effect, has changed its customer base. Students are drifting away, while older and wealthier travelers are stepping in. From an economic perspective, this raises key questions. Will Miami Beach earn more in hotel tax revenue from affluent tourists than it loses from the collapse of its nightlife economy? Or will the hollowing out of spring break drain the city of its cultural identity, the very thing that drew people in the first place? Consider the budgetary side. Though Miami Beach has not disclosed exact figures, city officials acknowledge spending millions on additional policing, DUI checkpoints, and crowd control infrastructure in 2025. License plate readers were installed at causeways, and entire stretches of Ocean Drive were barricaded to control traffic flow. Bag checks at beach entrances became the norm. Each of these measures requires manpower and money, raising the question, are taxpayers funding a campaign to push away one type of visitor in favor of another? There's also a political dimension. Local leaders defend their policies as necessary. In a press conference earlier this year, Mayor Stephen Miner declared, Miami Beach will not be held hostage by spring break chaos. We welcome visitors, but only those who respect our city. That rhetoric resonates with residents who remember deadly shootings in past years. But to business owners, it sounds like the city is deliberately scaring off customers. Case studies highlight the tension further. In 2022, 2 people were killed in a spring break shooting, sparking outrage. By 2023, curfews were enforced, but chaos continued. Now, with the 2025 crackdown, shootings and deaths have plummeted, but so has nightlife revenue. It's a trade-off that is reshaping Miami Beach's identity. One striking image captures this change. At midnight on a Saturday in March, Ocean Drive, once a river of neon and music, looked half empty. Police cruisers lined the road, and tourists wandered aimlessly, unsure where to go. Compare that with Panama City Beach the same weekend, where authorities reported multiple shootings and over 7 arrests related to out-of-state visitors. Miami Beach may be quieter, but the chaos has simply shifted elsewhere. So what's the bottom line? Miami Beach is safer, quieter, and perhaps more attractive to families and older travelers. But it is also less profitable for nightlife, less appealing to students, and increasingly expensive to manage. The question we must ask is this: is Miami Beach creating a more sustainable tourism model, or dismantling the very engine that powered its economy for decades? If you were Jason, the college student, would you ever return? If you were Maria, the longtime resident, would you trade peace for profit? And if you were sitting in City Hall, would you keep doubling down on costly crackdowns, or search for a middle path? To understand why Miami Beach is cracking down on spring break, we need to go behind the headlines. On the surface, it looks like a simple fight between tourists and locals. But underneath lies a complex web of economics, politics, and culture that has been building for years. The first driver is public safety. Spring break has long been associated with chaos, alcohol-fueled fights, property damage, and sometimes deadly violence. In 2022, 2 people were killed in separate shootings during the season, shocking the nation. By 2023, the city imposed midnight curfews and shut down liquor sales early, but the chaos continued. Each year, national media broadcasted scenes of brawls on Ocean Drive and police in riot gear. For city leaders, the reputation of Miami Beach as America's spring break war zone was unsustainable. Second, resident pressure reached a tipping point. Homeowners and long-term residents flooded City Hall meetings with complaints. Noise, traffic, and sleepless nights were not just annoyances, they were eroding property value. One resident told commissioners, "I pay $12,000 a year in property taxes, and in March I feel like a hostage in my own home." Politically, ignoring this anger was no longer an option. Third, there's the financial equation. While spring break brought in crowds, not all spending was equal. College students packed hotel rooms, 4 to a bed, ate at fast food joints, and bought cheap drinks at liquor stores. They filled the streets, but didn't necessarily fill the city's tax base. In contrast, Older international travelers booked suites, dined in luxury restaurants, and shopped in designer stores. For city planners, the math was clear. A quieter tourist with a platinum card might generate more revenue than 10 college kids sharing a pizza. Fourth, Miami Beach has been trying to rebrand itself. City officials increasingly see their future not as a student party hub, but as a global luxury destination closer to Cannes or Ibiza than to Daytona Beach. The crackdown on spring break is part of a long-term strategy to upgrade the city's clientele. Mayor Stephen Miner put it bluntly, "We are not in the business of subsidizing lawlessness. Miami Beach is for visitors who respect the city." Behind the scenes, there's also insurance and liability. Each violent incident during spring break triggered lawsuits, higher premiums, and pressure on local businesses. Nightclubs reported skyrocketing insurance costs. Some even closed preemptively, unable to cover the risk. The crackdown was as much about protecting the city's financial stability as it was about restoring order. Finally, political ambition plays a role. Florida leaders see Miami Beach as a stage. Being tough on spring break wins headlines and positions them as defenders of community safety. What better campaign slogan than "I brought peace back to Miami Beach"? So while the curfews and checkpoints may look like knee-jerk reactions, they are actually the product of years of pressure, strategy, and hidden costs. The city isn't just chasing away noisy tourists. It's betting its future on a different kind of visitor and gambling that the world will accept Miami Beach's new identity. If you were in charge, would you make the same bet? Would you risk losing spring break's billions to chase a quieter, more refined brand of tourism? Or is this just a political show with Miami Beach playing the role of America's strict parent? The consequences of Miami Beach's crackdown are already unfolding. On the streets, the difference is visible: fewer arrests, fewer shootings, and a calmer atmosphere. For residents, this is a victory. For business owners in nightlife, it feels like betrayal. And for the city's economy, the impact is still being calculated. Short-term, the data paints a mixed picture. Hotel occupancy has remained strong thanks to older and wealthier tourists who don't mind stricter rules. The Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau reported a 2% increase in domestic tourism and 4% growth in international arrivals in 2024, trends that seem to be holding steady. But bars, clubs, and liquor stores tell a darker story. Sweet Liberty saw sales plunge 30%. Smaller venues along Collins Avenue and Washington Avenue reported similar declines. The crackdown may have boosted public safety, but it drained the lifeblood from Miami Beach's once vibrant nightlife economy. Residents, however, speak with relief. Noise complaints are down, traffic congestion eased during peak nights. Maria Gonzalez, a longtime homeowner, summed it up. "For once, Miami Beach feels like a city again, not a carnival." But Jason, the college student from Ohio, sees it differently. "If this is the future, we're out. Next year, we'll head to Fort Lauderdale." So where does this leave Miami Beach? Let's explore 3 possible futures. Pessimistic scenario. Miami Beach continues its crackdown, but loses its brand identity. College students abandon it, nightlife collapses, and businesses reliant on spring break shutter their doors. The city becomes quieter but sterile, a shadow of its former self. Tax revenue from alcohol sales and clubs dries up, leaving the city overdependent on hotel, taxes, and luxury retail. Worse, rival cities like Fort Lauderdale or Panama City seize the spring break market, reaping billions while Miami watches from the sidelines. Neutral scenario. The city stabilizes into a new equilibrium. Spring break shrinks, but tourism numbers remain solid thanks to affluent visitors. The nightlife economy contracts but adapts, targeting older crowds with more upscale experiences. Residents enjoy safer streets, while the city balances its books with steady hotel revenue. Miami Beach doesn't collapse, but it doesn't shine as brightly either. Optimistic scenario. Miami Beach successfully rebrands itself as a global luxury hub. The spring break chaos fades into history, replaced by music festivals, art fairs, and high-end tourism. International arrivals surge, driven by Europeans and Canadians seeking safety and sophistication. Nightlife pivots toward exclusivity, generating higher margins from fewer but wealthier patrons. Miami Beach emerges stronger, wealthier, and calmer, hailed as a model for balancing tourism and quality of life. Which scenario will prevail? The answer depends on decisions made in City Hall and the willingness of businesses to adapt. But the stakes are clear. Miami Beach is playing with fire. It could emerge as America's Riviera, or watch its golden goose fly to friendlier shores. So what do you think? Is Miami Beach saving itself, or strangling its future? Now let's bring this story back to you. Imagine you're a college student planning your one big spring break trip. You've been saving for months, dreaming of neon lights on Ocean Drive, pool parties, and beaches that never sleep. You finally arrive in Miami, and instead of music, you see police checkpoints, bag searches, and early curfews. Would you still call that a vacation? Or would you feel like the city didn't want you there in the first place? Flip the script. Imagine you're a Miami Beach homeowner paying some of the highest property taxes in Florida. Every March, your quiet neighborhood turns into a carnival of chaos. Fights spill into the streets, traffic locks down for hours, and you can't sleep at night. This year, for the first time, you feel safe. You walk your dog at midnight without fear. Would you trade that peace just so clubs can make more money? And now, think like a policymaker. You're sitting in City Hall, staring at two charts. One shows arrests dropping 18%. The other shows bar revenues collapsing 30%. Which line matters more for the future of Miami Beach? Public safety or economic vitality? So here's the question. If you had to choose, would you rather Miami Beach stay safe and quiet, even if it loses billions in nightlife revenue? Or would you bring back the chaos for the sake of keeping spring break alive? Comment A if you think Miami Beach made the right call, or B if you believe the crackdown is killing the city's soul. Miami Beach is standing at a crossroads. In just one season, the city showed it could slash arrests by 14%, cut felony crimes by 26%, and reclaim its streets from chaos. But that victory came at a steep cost. Bars reporting revenue plunges of 30%, students vowing never to return, and a brand identity that feels under siege. Is this a bold reinvention or the slow unraveling of a legend? The numbers don't lie. Florida as a whole set a record with 143 million visitors in 2024, and Miami-Dade drew more than 28 million of them. Yet in the very heart of this tourism machine, a cultural clash threatens to redefine the future. Miami Beach could become America's Riviera, polished and exclusive, or it could end up a hollow resort town that lost its spark. So what do you think? Is Miami Beach saving itself or strangling its golden goose? Would you, as a tourist, still choose Miami with curfews and checkpoints? Or would you look elsewhere for your spring break escape? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't just watch. Join the debate. Subscribe for more deep dives into the cost of living, tourism, and the hidden economics shaping America's future. See you in the next video.